The Zephyrian War Council chamber thrummed with the energy of conquest. Admiral Zeltar's scarred carapace reflected the holographic displays showing 17 star systems, each one a testament to their military supremacy. The crystalline Vortikians had shattered like fragile glass under their plasma bombardment. The mighty metallic Chromians had melted into silvery puddles within hours. Even the legendary stone-skinned Goliaths of Terminus Prime, warriors who could crush starship hulls with their bare hands, had crumbled to dust when faced with Zephyrian firepower. Now, the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star rotated slowly in the central hologram, Earth, home to a species that had somehow found the audacity to refuse their ultimatum of surrender. These humans. Admiral Zeltar's mandibles clicked as he spoke, his four eyes studying the primitive blue world. They claimed to be a warrior species worthy of respect? Science Officer Yith consulted his bioscanner readings, his tentacles manipulating the data streams with practiced efficiency. Yes, Admiral. Our deep space reconnaissance probes have completed their analysis. The humans are composed entirely of soft organic matter, carbon-based life forms with calcium carbonate skeletal structures. Their skin appears to be nothing more than a thin membrane protecting vulnerable internal organs. No natural armor plating, no crystalline matrix, no metallic reinforcement. Zeltar's mandibles clicked in genuine amusement, a sound like grinding stone. Fascinating. And these fragile creatures dare to refuse the might of the Zephyrian Empire? They must possess some hidden technology, perhaps energy shields or dimensional barriers. Our scans detect no such defenses, Admiral. Their technology appears centuries behind our own. Then they are either incredibly foolish or incredibly brave. Zeltar rose from his command throne, his massive form casting shadows across the war room. Very well. We shall make an example of them, as we have with all who oppose us. Prepare the Omega Destroyer. One focused pulse should be sufficient to reduce their entire planet to cosmic debris. The bridge fell silent except for the ominous hum of charging weapons. The Omega Destroyer was the crown jewel of Zephyrian military engineering, a weapon capable of cracking small moons in half, of boiling away oceans, of turning entire continents into molten slag. Its energy readings climbed steadily beyond anything the galaxy had witnessed since the ancient wars. As the devastating beam launched across the void toward Earth, every sentient species within a dozen light-years felt the shock wave ripple through subspace. Primitive civilizations would record this moment in their mythologies as the day the very stars trembled. But when the blazing energy finally dissipated, when the sensors cleared and the tactical displays updated, Earth remained exactly as it had been moments before. Not just intact, completely and utterly unscathed. Not a single cloud had been disturbed. Not one city showed damage. The planet continued its lazy rotation as if nothing had happened. "Impossible," Zeltar whispered, his voice barely audible above the shocked silence of his crew. "The readings must be an error. Recalibrate all sensors and increase power to maximum output." 3 more shots followed in rapid succession, each one carrying enough destructive force to shatter a moon, to vaporize a fleet, to reduce a mountain range to atoms. Each one absorbed harmlessly by the small, seemingly defenseless blue world orbiting its quiet yellow sun. "Admiral," Science Officer Yith's voice trembled with uncertainty, "we are receiving a transmission from the human homeworld." The main hologram flickered to life, revealing a middle-aged human female wearing what appeared to be a simple military uniform. Her expression was one of mild curiosity rather than fear or awe. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Command," she said calmly. "I'm assuming that light show was your way of saying hello, because honestly, my 8-year-old daughter's Nerf gun has more kick than whatever you just threw at us." "Impossible," Zeltar whispered. his voice barely audible above the shocked silence of his crew. "The readings must be an error. Recalibrate all sensors and increase power to maximum output." 3 more shots followed in rapid succession, each one carrying enough destructive force to shatter a moon, to vaporize a fleet, to reduce a mountain range to atoms. Each one absorbed harmlessly by the small, seemingly defenseless blue world orbiting its quiet yellow sun. "Admiral," Science Officer Yith's voice trembled with uncertainty. "We are receiving a transmission from the human homeworld." The main hologram flickered to life, revealing a middle-aged human female wearing what appeared to be a simple military uniform. Her expression was one of mild curiosity rather than fear or awe. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Command," she said calmly. "I'm assuming that light show was your way of saying hello, because honestly, my 8-year-old daughter's Nerf gun has more kick than whatever you just threw at us." The Zephyrian High Command's crystalline war chambers echoed with frantic chittering and the scraping of claws on metal. 48 standard galactic hours had elapsed since their most devastating weapons had failed spectacularly against the human homeworld. Emergency councils convened around the clock. Ancient military doctrines were being questioned for the first time in millennia. The impossible had occurred. A species had not only survived the Omega Destroyer, but had mocked them afterward. The humans must possess some form of advanced planetary shielding technology, declared Science Commander Vex High, his purple carapace gleaming under the harsh artificial lights. Perhaps dimensional phase barriers or quantum deflection matrices. No organic life form could possibly withstand that level of destructive force. Admiral Zeltar's mandibles clicked in frustrated agreement, though doubt gnawed at his military confidence. "Whatever their secret, we must uncover it. Send a reconnaissance team to the surface. Capture live specimens for detailed biological analysis. If they have developed immunity to energy weapons, we need to understand how." The stealth ship Quantum Blade descended through Earth's atmosphere under cover of darkness, its advanced cloaking systems rendering it invisible to primitive human detection methods. Its crew of 12 elite Zephyrian warriors represented the pinnacle of their military evolution, each standing 8 feet tall, their natural chitinous armor plating capable of deflecting small arms fire, razor-sharp claws that could slice through starship hull metal, and reflexes honed through centuries of conquest. They landed in what their orbital reconnaissance had identified as a major population center called New York City. The mission parameters were deceptively simple: locate isolated human specimens, neutralize them with non-lethal capture methods, transport them to the mothership for comprehensive study, and return with actionable intelligence. The first human they encountered was a solitary female jogging through what appeared to be a recreational area designated Central Park. She wore brightly colored athletic clothing and small audio devices in her ears, completely oblivious to their presence despite their proximity. Perfect for testing their theories about human resilience in a controlled environment. "Target acquired," Squad Leader Krex hissed through his quantum communicator, his 4 eyes tracking the woman's steady movement along the paved pathway. "Initiating non-lethal capture sequence." He carefully aimed his neural disruptor at the center of the woman's back. The weapon discharged a concentrated psychic energy beam specifically calibrated to overload the nervous systems of carbon-based life forms. A beam powerful enough to instantly paralyze a chromian battle beast weighing 3 tons. The energy struck the human directly between her shoulder blades with perfect precision. She paused mid-stride, removed one of her audio devices, and turned around with an expression of mild confusion. "Excuse me, did someone just poke me back there?" Krex stared in absolute disbelief. He increased the weapon's power output and fired again, this time delivering enough neural disruption energy to drop a charging Terminan rhinoceros. The woman brushed casually at her back like she was swatting away an annoying insect. "Seriously? What is that? A mosquito or something?" Her eyes focused directly on the supposedly invisible Zephyrian squad. Oh, well, that's definitely new. Are you guys supposed to be some kind of street performers or something? Within minutes, the encounter in Central Park had escalated far beyond every protocol in the Zephyrian military handbook. What had begun as a routine specimen gathering mission, the kind of operation they had successfully executed on dozens of conquered worlds, had transformed into their first direct ground combat engagement with humanity. The jogger, who cheerfully introduced herself as Maya Rodriguez, but everyone calls me Tank, had somehow managed to perceive their advanced quantum cloaking technology with her naked eyes. Even more disturbing, when squad leader Krex attempted to physically restrain her using a gravitational containment net capable of immobilizing a 2-ton Goliath warrior, she simply walked through the crackling energy field as if it were a gentle breeze. "Okay, this is getting really weird," Maya said, examining the blue energy wisps clinging to her workout clothes. "Is this like some kind of interactive art installation? Because I have to say, the special effects are pretty cool, but I really need to finish my cardio routine or my trainer is going to absolutely murder me." Krex activated his emergency distress beacon, his 4 eyes wide with disbelief. This situation had moved completely outside his extensive combat training and tactical experience. The crisis deepened exponentially when Maya's aforementioned trainer arrived on the scene. A compact 6-foot human male who introduced himself as Coach Rodriguez, no relation to Maya, just a coincidence, appeared completely unfazed by the presence of 8-foot-tall, heavily armed alien warriors. In fact, he seemed more annoyed than frightened. "Maya Elena Rodriguez," Coach Rodriguez said in the tone of voice that had intimidated championship athletes for over 2 decades. "What did I specifically tell you about stopping mid-workout? I don't care if it's aliens, zombies, the actual apocalypse, or your mother calling to ask when you're getting married. You finish your interval training first." Squad leader Krex decided this was the moment to demonstrate the absolute superiority of Zephyrian military technology. He drew his molecular disintegrator, a compact weapon capable of reducing reinforced starship hull plating to its component atoms, and fired directly at Coach Rodriguez's center mass without hesitation. The concentrated beam of destructive energy struck Coach Rodriguez squarely in the chest, leaving a smoking hole in his favorite New York Giants t-shirt. He looked down at the damage, then slowly raised his eyes to meet Krex's gaze with the expression of a man whose day had suddenly become significantly more complicated and expensive. Fantastic, just fantastic. Coach Rodriguez examined the ruined shirt with genuine sadness. Now I need to buy a new shirt, and this was my lucky one too. 23 years I've had this shirt. He turned back to Maya, who was stretching her hamstrings against a park bench. "Keep running those intervals. I'll handle our visitors." What happened next would be analyzed in Zephyrian military academies for the next 1,000 years, studied as a perfect example of how superior technology means nothing without understanding your opponent's psychology. Dr. Elena Vasquez had witnessed countless extraordinary phenomena during her 20-year career as a xenobiologist, but watching a fully armored Zephyrian warrior flee in absolute terror from her 5-year-old nephew Danny was definitely unprecedented in the scientific literature. "The readings are completely impossible," she muttered, her fingers dancing across holographic displays while reviewing the comprehensive data collected from the Central Park incident. "According to every law of physics we understand, their weapons should have vaporized Maya on molecular contact. Instead, our sensors barely registered any energy transfer whatsoever." The captured Zephyrian equipment had undergone exhaustive analysis in the most advanced laboratories on Earth. Teams of physicists, engineers, and weapons specialists had subjected each device to every conceivable test. The results were unanimous and terrifying. These were genuine weapons of mass destruction, capable of leveling mountain ranges, boiling entire oceans, and cracking planetary crusts like eggshells. Yet they had absolutely no measurable effect on human tissue. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Vasquez announced to the emergency United Nations session via secure holographic link, it's not that we're immune to directed energy attacks. The situation is far more complex and frankly more disturbing than simple immunity. We are somehow converting hostile energy into usable biological fuel, like living, breathing energy converters. General Morrison leaned forward in his chair, his weathered face creased with concern. Dr. Vasquez, are you telling us that human beings are some kind of organic energy transformation devices? More than that, General, we're energy amplifiers. Every attack we absorb makes us demonstrably stronger, faster, and more resilient. The Zephyrian neural disruptor that completely failed to affect Maya, she immediately afterward ran her personal best marathon time by 6 minutes. The molecular disintegrator beam that struck Coach Rodriguez, he later bench-pressed his neighbor's Volkswagen just to test his strength levels. The assembled delegates sat in stunned silence as the implications began to sink in. Humanity hadn't just survived first contact with a technologically superior hostile alien species, they had accidentally discovered they were essentially living weapons absorption systems. Dr. Vasquez activated another holographic display showing detailed test results. But here's the truly fascinating part of our research. It's not limited to energy-based weapons. Physical kinetic attacks, biochemical toxins, radiation exposure, gravitational manipulation, anything specifically designed or intended to cause harm to a human being gets absorbed and converted into what we're tentatively calling enhancement energy. She showed footage from controlled laboratory experiments. Volunteer test subjects being struck by captured Zephyrian sonic weapons, plasma rifles, antimatter charges, and even their dreaded planet-cracking singularity bombs. In every single recorded case, the weapons produced no harmful effects while making the humans noticeably more energetic and physically capable. One particularly brave volunteer accidentally got struck by their planet killer beam during yesterday's tests, Dr. Vasquez continued. He reported that it felt like receiving a warm, comforting hug, and then proceeded to deadlift 800 pounds without breaking a sweat. The assembled delegates sat in stunned silence as the implications began to sink in. Humanity hadn't just survived first contact with a technologically superior hostile alien species, they had accidentally discovered they were essentially living weapons absorption systems. Dr. Vasquez activated another holographic display showing detailed test results. But here's the truly fascinating part of our research. It's not limited to energy-based weapons. Physical kinetic attacks, biochemical toxins, radiation exposure, gravitational manipulation, anything specifically designed or intended to cause harm to a human being gets absorbed and converted into what we're tentatively calling enhancement energy. She showed footage from controlled laboratory experiments. Volunteer test subjects being struck by captured Zephyrian sonic weapons, plasma rifles, antimatter charges, and even their dreaded planet-cracking singularity bombs. In every single recorded case, the weapons produced no harmful effects while making the humans noticeably more energetic and physically capable. One particularly brave volunteer accidentally got struck by their planet killer beam during yesterday's tests, Dr. Vasquez continued. He reported that it felt like receiving a warm, comforting hug and then proceeded to deadlift 800 pounds without breaking a sweat. 3 weeks after first contact, the mighty Zephyrian Empire found itself in complete existential freefall. The crisis wasn't caused by any human military counterattack. Earth had made absolutely no aggressive moves whatsoever. The catastrophe was purely philosophical, striking at the very foundation of everything the Zephyrians believed about power, conquest, and galactic dominance. For 10,000 years, their entire civilization had been built around a simple, brutal principle: conquest through overwhelming superior firepower. Every species in their vast empire had surrendered immediately when faced with weapons capable of cracking planets and boiling away entire star systems. The Zephyrian military doctrine was elegant in its simplicity: demonstrate absolute destructive capability, and resistance becomes impossible. But humans? Humans absorbed everything the Empire could throw at them and politely asked if there was anything stronger available. Emperor Zarthon called an unprecedented emergency session of the Galactic Dominion Council. Representatives from hundreds of conquered species gathered in the vast obsidian throne room, their faces, or equivalent sensory organs, displaying a mixture of profound confusion and barely contained hope that hadn't been seen in centuries. "The humans," Emperor Zarthon began, his voice echoing through the cavernous chamber with uncharacteristic uncertainty, "appear to possess complete immunity to all known forms of directed hostile energy." A ripple of astonished murmurs passed through the assembled delegates. The crystalline Vorticaean representative raised a translucent appendage with obvious excitement. "All known forms, Your Imperial Magnificence? Surely there must be some exception." "Every form our scientists have catalogued." The Emperor's mandibles clicked in frustrated bewilderment. Plasma bombardment, antimatter annihilation, quantum disruption fields, molecular disintegration beams, neural disruption waves, sonic weaponry, gravitational manipulation devices, temporal distortion fields, absolutely everything. They absorb every joule of energy and convert it into what their researchers term personal enhancement gains. The massive Goliath representative, his granite-like features maintaining their characteristic stoic composure, spoke in a voice like grinding continental plates. "Perhaps conventional kinetic and physical weapons would prove more effective?" "We conducted extensive field testing with every weapon in our arsenal," Emperor Zarthon replied, pulling up holographic footage from various human population centers. "Kinetic orbital bombardment, chemical warfare agents, biological pathogens, radioactive materials, even our legendary entropy bombs that unravel matter at the atomic level. Nothing produces any harmful effects. They either absorb the attacks completely, ignore them entirely, or somehow transform them into what their scientists enthusiastically call training benefits." The throne room fell into absolute silence. For 10 millennia, these diverse species had lived under the crushing weight of Zephyrian rule, believing that resistance was not just futile but physically impossible. Now they were learning that somewhere in the galaxy existed a species that couldn't be conquered because they literally couldn't be harmed by anything their oppressors possessed. Science Officer Yith approached the Imperial throne with obvious trepidation. "Your Magnificence, our xenobiological research teams have developed a comprehensive theory regarding human evolution and their inexplicable abilities." "Explain." "Their planet orbits directly in what they call the Goldilocks zone, not too hot, not too cold. But our analysis shows this is deceptive. Earth's surface is constantly bombarded by cosmic radiation, solar flares, magnetic field fluctuations, and atmospheric pressure variations that would kill most species instantly." Yith activated a detailed scan of Earth. "But that's not the worst part. Their planet is tectonically active. Constant earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis. The weather systems are chaotic and violent. They have storms that generate more energy than our plasma cannons." The Emperor leaned forward. "And they survived this?" "More than survived. They thrived. They developed recreational activities that deliberately expose them to these dangers. They call it extreme sports." A new hologram showed humans jumping from aircraft without protection, riding controlled explosions down mountains, and deliberately placing themselves in the path of their planet's weather systems. They do this for fun?" whispered the Vorticaean delegate. "It gets worse," Yith continued. "Their bodies are in constant conflict with microscopic organisms. Every human carries billions of hostile life forms that are constantly trying to kill them. They've been fighting a biological war for their entire evolutionary history." The implications hit the assembly like a shockwave. Every species in the Dominion had evolved on relatively peaceful worlds. They had developed technology to overcome their environmental challenges. Humans had evolved to become living weapons that fed on conflict itself. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the reinforced observation deck of the USS Defiant, humanity's first interstellar warship, watching the massive Zephyrian armada approaching through the starfield. 200 vessels stretched across space, each battleship the size of Manhattan, bristling with weapons that had successfully conquered half the known galaxy over 10 millennia of systematic expansion. "Ma'am," reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson from the communication station, his voice tight with barely controlled excitement, "Admiral Zeltar is transmitting on all frequencies. Shall I put him through?" "By all means, Lieutenant Commander. Let's hear what he has to say." Admiral Zeltar's imposing alien visage materialized on the main view screen, his chitinous features twisted with what Sarah was rapidly learning to recognize as desperate frustration mixed with wounded imperial pride. "Human vessel, this constitutes your final warning before complete annihilation. Surrender immediately and submit to Zephyrian authority, or face the absolute full might of our entire battle fleet." Sarah smiled with the casual politeness she reserved for particularly persistent telemarketers. "Admiral Zeltar, with all due respect to your impressive fleet, we've been experiencing your full might for over a month now. Just yesterday, my 8-year-old daughter Emma used your planet killer beam as a tanning lamp for her school science project." "This engagement will be fundamentally different," Zeltar insisted, his mandibles clicking with agitation. "We have assembled our complete Imperial war fleet, weapons capable of shattering entire star systems, devices that can unravel the fabric of space-time itself. We will not exercise restraint or mercy." "Neither will we," Sarah replied calmly. "Fire when ready, Admiral." The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with devastating synchronized precision. 200 warships discharged their complete arsenal simultaneously, the combined energy output sufficient to sterilize multiple solar systems and reduce planets to cosmic dust. Space itself ignited like a miniature supernova as every exotic weapon in their technological arsenal discharged at maximum power. When the brilliant light finally faded and the sensors cleared, the Defiant was not only completely intact, it was literally glowing with absorbed energy. "Fascinating development," Sarah mused, casually checking her tactical displays. "Chief Engineer Martinez, how are our current power levels reading?" "Completely off the charts, Captain. Whatever they just bombarded us with, our bio-neural power systems are converting it into usable energy at unprecedented rates. We're currently operating at 847% normal capacity, and the readings are still climbing." Sarah nodded approvingly and opened a secure quantum channel to Earth Command. "Control, this is Captain Chen aboard the Defiant. The Zephyrian fleet just provided us with enough converted energy to power the entire North American continent for approximately 6 months, requesting permission to return their generous gift." "Permission enthusiastically granted, Captain. Show them exactly what humans accomplish when we're properly motivated." Sarah turned to her weapons officer with a predatory grin. "Mr. Kim, target their flagship with a single photon torpedo." "Just one torpedo, ma'am?" "Trust me, Lieutenant. After what they just fed us, it'll be more than sufficient." 6 months after first contact, the once mighty Zephyrian Empire had become nothing more than a cautionary tale whispered across the galaxy. What had dominated interstellar politics for 10 millennia was now a scattered collection of independent worlds struggling to rediscover their identities in a universe where military might no longer guaranteed survival. The former Emperor Zarthon stood in the spacious cargo bay of the USS Defiant, no longer wearing the ornate imperial robes that had once symbolized absolute galactic authority. Instead, he wore simple work coveralls, his massive hands carefully assembling medical supplies destined for war-torn worlds that his empire had ravaged for centuries. "How are you adjusting to civilian life?" Captain Sarah Chen asked, approaching with 2 steaming cups of coffee, a human beverage that had rapidly become popular among dozens of alien species. "It is profoundly different," Zarthon admitted, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully as he accepted the cup. For 10,000 years, my species believed that strength came exclusively from the ability to destroy, to dominate, to instill fear. You humans have taught us that true strength comes from the ability to endure suffering and still choose compassion. Sarah nodded toward the massive viewport where hundreds of ships from across the galaxy worked together in perfect coordination. Former enemies now collaborated to rebuild worlds, share technology, and establish trade routes that benefited everyone rather than enriching a single empire. "It's not about being physically tough, Zarthon," Sarah explained. "It's about getting back up every time you're knocked down, and then helping others do the same thing." "Is that why you chose to spare us? Why you didn't retaliate with genocide when you possessed the power to destroy our entire species?" Sarah's expression grew thoughtful. "Because we understand what it's like to be the underdog. Every species deserves a second chance to become better than their worst moments." Dr. Elena Vasquez joined their conversation, her tablet displaying comprehensive xenobiological data. "Captain, the integration studies have produced remarkable results. Every species we've encountered possesses some form of adaptive immunity or defensive capability. The Zephyrians simply never allowed anyone the opportunity to develop these natural abilities." "Could you elaborate on that?" "Take the Vortakians, for example. They're crystalline beings who can actually absorb and redirect various forms of energy. They just never had the chance because they surrendered immediately before their defensive capabilities could manifest. The Goliaths can literally become exponentially harder and more resilient under stress. Even the Zephyrians themselves possess natural armor plating that becomes significantly stronger when they're threatened." Zarthon looked up sharply, his four eyes widening with surprise. "That's impossible. Our weapons were specifically engineered to overcome any natural defensive adaptations." "Exactly the problem," Dr. Vasquez explained patiently. "You never gave anyone a chance to adapt or evolve their defenses. You attacked with overwhelming force immediately, ending conflicts before species could discover their own capabilities. But humans? We've been getting knocked down and getting back up for our entire evolutionary history. We're not special, we're just incredibly stubborn." A new voice joined their conversation. "Actually, you're more special than you realize."